Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today for the Fresno State webinar for faculty and staff here at Fresno State. We want to allow others just a little bit more time to join. So if I can go over a couple of details with you. We have launched a new website announcing the details around the fall 2020 semester and plans for that. So I do welcome you all to visit that site. We did develop quite a robust set of frequently asked questions for students, for faculty, and for staff. So I welcome you to see those as well. And that new website is accessible on any university-hosted website. So at the very top, there's an orange banner on any site that you go to related to the university, and then you can reach the Fall 2020 website. So I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Patty Wade, and I am Director of Communications here at Fresno State. We did send out a notification to the campus community today around the fall plans, and we're so glad that you are here to join us today. We'll devote much of our time, actually the full hour, to answer your questions. If you would like to submit a question, please use the Q&A option, not the chat option, but the Q&A option. And I will do my best to read each one aloud for our panelists to answer for you. And just note that I may not answer them necessarily in the order that they are received. So just keep that in mind, and we'll do our best to answer them all. So today we're joined by President Castro and our Provost Saul Jimenez Sandoval, and Vice President Debbie A. Stone as well. So thank you for joining us today. President Castro, do you want to start off with a few brief remarks, and then we'll wait as people begin submitting questions?
Sure. Thank you, Patty. Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday to you. Just want to start by thanking all of you for your hard work, and we miss you. For those of you who are not here on campus, we miss you right now. And we're looking forward to a new normal someday when we're back together. I wanted to share some opening remarks with you, and then I'll be happy to answer your questions along with Provost Jimenez Sandoval and Vice President A. Stone. Well, as you might recall, on May the 12th, the entire CSU system announced that at nearly all 23 campuses, including Fresno State, most course delivery in the fall semester will be virtual, with a limited number of essential in-person courses. And this decision reflects public health officials' predictions that COVID-19 will remain a serious health risk until a vaccine is developed. And so given that, and given the recent surge in confirmed cases and hospitalizations in our region, and the prediction for a second wave in the fall throughout the country, I believe that it is imperative for us to strike a balance between two very important goals. And first and foremost, we want to continue to ensure a quality education experience for our talented students. And you all play such a key role in that. Our students are emerging leaders here in the Valley and beyond, and we want to make sure that they're educated and resourceful as they get ready to pursue their career. And our society needs that leadership more than ever. So the work that we are doing together to educate our students is so critically important, more so than ever. Our other very important goal is that we must do everything that we can to protect the health and safety of our entire campus, the entire community, as well as our family members and our students. I want to make sure that we keep that at the forefront of our thinking. So this is about all of us and about the students and their families and our families as well. And many of us live in multi-generational households, so we need to be mindful of that. there might be older folks living in our households, or there might be people in our households with underlying health conditions. So we believe that the plan that's been developed, led by Provost Jimenez Sandoval and Vice President Astone, and supported by so many faculty and staff and students, and also including representation from our county public health department. We believe that they've struck the right balance here between those two goals. And we believe that we'll be able to continue providing a high quality educational experience and allow our students to continue making steady academic progression in this upcoming semester. We're very pleased to invest in the new professional development program for our faculty and for our TAs. I understand that we have somewhere around 900 faculty participating in that program this summer. So I thank you all for stepping up to do that. While we remain optimistic about the eventual full repopulation of the campus in spring 2021, the planning done by our task force will prepare us to transition to full virtual instruction in the event that the pandemic surges in our region later this year. So we have that as our backup plan just in case. Before I take your questions, with Provost Jimenez Sandoval and Vice President Astone, I wanted to highlight a couple areas of our plan. One is that we assume a daily campus population of approximately 2,200 students, faculty, and staff, and that's about 7.5% of the overall campus population for fall of 2019. And of that population, approximately 1,340 students will be enrolled in 128 in-person courses that have been approved for the fall semester. Optional but highly encouraged baseline COVID-19 testing will be available for students, faculty, and staff at no charge for those who are returning to campus for fall 2020. And the plan also includes daily health screenings and temperature checks that will enable us to keep everybody as safe as we can. For those who will be here in the fall, it will be each person's responsibility to adhere to all public health protocols to reduce the risk of infection among our campus community members and their families. And this includes using face masks, practicing good hygiene, and also maintaining appropriate social distancing. I want to close by sharing again my admiration for your resilience during this time. It's been a challenging time for all of us, and for some of us more challenging than for others, depending on our circumstances. And I've heard from so many of you different stories of resilience and the resilience of the students that we serve. And I am grateful to serve along with you at Fresno State during this consequential time where we're managing a variety of challenges, personal and professional. And we're going to do everything we can to continue to support you as faculty and staff who support our extraordinarily talented students. And Provost Jimenez Sandoval, Vice President Astone, and I will now be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. We just took a look and there are about 530 people on here today, so that's a great turnout.
Wonderful.
I remind the audience members, if you do have questions, to submit it in the Q&A function rather than in the chat. And we will start off with the first one that was submitted. For in-person instruction, when will classroom capacities be identified, enrollments reduced, and who will be doing that?
I'm off mute now. It's a great question. I think I'll ask Vice President Astone to start off, and she might want Provost to help with that as well.
Thank you, President Castro. Yes, our facilities team has been working closely with our colleagues in academic affairs with Dr. Fu, and we have identified the reduced occupancy for the classrooms that will be used for the fall to support in-person courses. And we also have plans developed for each of the rooms so that we know if we need to, for example, if it's a fixed tiered seating room, what seats we need to tape off or rows we might need to tape off. And in rooms where we have reduced occupancy that is not fixed seating, we will make sure that we only have the required number of tablet armchairs in those rooms, and the floor will be marked about as far as the location of where those should be located. So when the faculty enter the classroom on the first day of instruction, all of that will be set up and accommodated, and has also been taken into consideration for the enrollment capacity as part of the schedule of courses. And I'll defer to the provost as well.
Yeah, right now the courses that we've identified are already up on the registrar's website. So if you go to the registrar's website and then you look on the left-hand corner to the top, you'll see Fall 2020. If you click on that, you'll see the list of classes that will be face-to-face for Fall 2020. So these instructors have already been identified as well. The ones that have the instructors assigned to them currently have been contacted by Marsha Baum. So these people already know if they're going to be here on campus for fall instruction face-to-face. If there are any issues that we encounter with professors who are not able to come for various COVID-19 related reasons, then we work through those and then we resolve them.
Thank you. So our next question has to do with budgets. How do you foresee how we will be impacted with our budget, and do you foresee major cuts in either personnel or hours? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a very important question. As you might know, the state budget is being finalized right now, and we've been advocating for as much support for the CSU as possible. We do anticipate a reduction in our state-funded budget, and we should know about that in the coming days. We'll make sure that we communicate that to you. We've already been working at the cabinet level on different scenarios that would prepare us for that, and we'll be able to announce those in the coming days and weeks. But we will be looking at ways in which we can trim our expenses. We've done that very well during COVID because we're not traveling any longer. We have not had events. Those are two substantial cost savings that will help us here. And then we are looking at other ways to reduce administrative expenses. But I want you to know that we're going to do our very best to support all of you and to support our talented students. So we'll share more in the coming days and weeks about the unfolding budget situation. That's with respect to the state side. With respect to the non-state side, as you might have heard me talk about before, those are more like nonprofit businesses, Save Mart Center and housing and parking, dining. Those things have, because of COVID, we've lost substantial revenue. So we've already had to make adjustments there around staffing, and we've done some of that in athletics as well. So we're taking steps wherever we can to reduce our expenses and also protect the academic core of our mission, and we'll continue to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. I did forget to mention to the audience that we are recording this session. So if for some reason you're not able to stay with us for the full hour, we will be posting the recording later on the Fall 2020 website.
Patty, if I could,
Sure.
Debbie, would you like to add to any of that around the budget?
President Castro, you covered all of the pertinent details, and as you mentioned, we're just obviously waiting for a final state budget so that we know how to plan accordingly, but we have tried to do our best to be ready with a plan in the event that we do get communicated about any reductions. and just appreciate everyone's help in being as efficient and cost efficient and looking at ways to do things differently, and just appreciate everyone's efforts.
Thank you, Debbie. The next question is, seems to be from a faculty member. Will we be expecting guidance as faculty for best practices to enforce the use of face masks for in-person instruction?
I'd like to ask the provost to answer that.
Thank you. We are developing right now a set of guidelines for faculty. These guidelines will be soon distributed through your chairs. The chairs are in constant communication with the deans as well. We will establish a very strong culture of responsibility at Fresno State as far as how it is that we are a community that is protecting itself, and how it is that we will follow the face masks, we will follow good hygiene, social distancing, etc. So that is forthcoming.
Okay, next question has to do with childcare on campus. When will decisions be made about childcare on campus through programs for children? Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. I'm going to ask Vice President Astone to answer that one.
Thank you, President Castro. Yes, and coordination with the provost, we met with our colleagues in programs for children. And if you haven't been contacted, you should be contacted shortly. Our programs for children, childcare center sites will be open in the fall with reduced enrollment due to physical distancing. They should be able to accommodate approximately 84 children. And the priority will be for existing families, and also to try to accommodate additional incremental needs that our faculty and staff may have, depending upon their schedule and depending upon if they are required to be here to teach in-person courses. So if you have not been contacted by Programs for Children, please reach out to Brittany Randolph, who's the director. But we had an extensive meeting with them, and they have a very good plan that ensures that the safety of the children and our Programs for Children teachers, but it does require us, unfortunately, to have a reduced enrollment, at least for the fall. And I know, Provost, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just that their plan is very comprehensive, like you said, Debbie, and their plan includes everything from cleaning protocols to temperature taking at the beginning when the child is dropped off, to a set of questions that each person has to answer prior to dropping off the child in relationship to them and also to the child, etc. So that also is being coordinated by Ms. Randall.
Thank you to you both. The next question has to do with independent research studies. Sorry, my screen just jumped. What about independent research studies? Would students be allowed to come to campus to do research?
Yeah, Provost, would you like to answer that?
Sure, yeah. Dean Marshall is currently spearheading the research team, research repopulation team. They have forwarded us their preliminary result from that. We are studying that, and we will also be bringing in the deans in order to implement any and all procedures dealing with research, as is the case with in this question. So more information will be forthcoming with that. The team has done a tremendous job in establishing very concrete, clear procedures as far as repopulating the campuses with a research component, and more info will be coming with that again.
Great. This question starts with a little context first. Given the COVID-19 models and that Fresno will remain hot through October, our region should theoretically get hit with a potential second wave in November. So given that concern, what is the administration's timeline for determining the best course of action for the spring in terms of in-person versus virtual?
That's a great question. I don't have a specific timeline at this point, but I can assure you that all the presidents of the CSU and Chancellor White meet on a regular basis, and we're constantly monitoring the public health advice. And so as we get into the fall, we'll be discussing that, and I promise you that we will stay in close touch with all of you and make the best decision that we can. As you might recall, that May decision by Chancellor White was criticized by some because they felt like it was too early and it was too drastic. So there's kind of an art and a science to this, and we're going to try to manage that carefully and give people as much notice as we can. But at the same time, we all know this is an evolving pandemic, and we're all learning from it. So I promise you we'll stay in close communication with all of you. Our plan for the fall is to front load as much of the hands-on sorts of activities as we can, so that if we do have to move to virtual for everything later in the semester, that it'll be less disruptive. So we'll continue to plan that way, and we'll stay in touch in terms of the spring.
Great. This has more to do with actually entering campus in the fall. What is the process for actually entering campus expected to look like? Despite reduced total population, campus population, might there be longer than normal waits to get into campus because of required medical testing?
Thank you. I'd like to ask Vice President Astone to answer that question.
Thank you. Yes, and in working with our colleagues who are part of our public health work group as part of the task force, we are working on the logistical plan right now for how we would verify that the health screening questions were answered and to quickly take temperatures. And so more to come on that information, but we are looking at something that would be very simple, possibly looking at something that we could even handle, for example, in one of our larger parking lots so that we don't queue back up onto any of the streets. We realize, and we also have the information on the course times and dates. So we'll be able to make sure that we have adequate staffing to be able to accommodate, and that what the plan calls for is that once verified that the health screening has been completed and the temperature is taken, that we would have a different colored sticker for each day so that we know that we had been kind of through the health screening process. We want to make it as simple and convenient and as quick as possible. And actually we'll be engaging and working with our team in parking, and to be able to see if they can assist with some of the logistics as well with our colleagues in the Student Health Center.
Thank you, Debbie. In terms of hosting events, and I assume this is both in person and large meetings as well, what will the guidelines be for hosting those types of events both on and off campus this fall and winter?
Thank you. Vice President Astone, would you like to answer that?
Yes, thank you. So we're all very concerned about the safety and welfare of our campus community. And while we realize that many events and meetings are very critical, but during this time, we really do need to manage the number and size of events that are on campus in the fall semester. So more guidelines will be coming out, but the requirement will be that we can accommodate events up to 25 persons. We'll need to go through kind of the proper approval process within your department, ensuring that the room can accommodate physical distancing, ensuring, hand sanitizing gel, wearing a facial coverings if the event is indoors. And as long as all of the public health guidelines can be met, we are going to look at being able to accommodate events that are for persons for occupancy or capacity of 25 or less. And this would also include any off-campus events that are hosted or sponsored by the university. But more information will be coming out either in campus news or in a communication with those with that information.
I could just add to that. I really want to encourage us to be as safe as possible. And there are very few examples of events during this pandemic that I think require us to bring 25 people together. So it's going to be quite limited. And I have found in my experience that we're able to get a lot of this work done virtually. And while I miss the in-person interactions, this pandemic is so uncertain that I would just encourage you to try to find alternatives wherever you can, because there will be a risk. Even if we take the greatest of care, there will be a risk. So I just want to ask you to look at that and consider that, and then we'll review those requests with that in mind.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. As a reminder to the audience, if you do have questions, please submit them via the Q&A, not via the chat. And that way we can make sure that we see your questions. This next one, let's see. President Castro, I've heard you and others talk about lots of professional development and support for faculty. What about for staff? What are plans for them?
That's a great question. And I know that we've continued our professional development programs for staff, and we're always open to suggestions for other ways of supporting our staff. I think I'll ask Vice President A. to give you a kind of an overview of what our plans are for the summer and the fall.
Thank you. Yes, as all of you know, our organizational excellence area continues to offer a number of opportunities for training and development. Kathleen Scott and her team have continued to offer programs virtually when we transitioned and continued through the summer, and those will continue into the fall. Our programming and opportunities for virtual development continue to increase, and we really have not pulled back on any of those opportunities. And if you have specific recommendations or ideas, please reach out to Kathleen. She's always welcomes, if there's additional training or development opportunities that would be helpful, especially as many are working remotely, and just if there's technology training, if there's other types of training that would be helpful, please contact Kathleen, and we continue to tailor and customize the development opportunities for our staff that they would find valuable, especially during this time. There's a lot of great opportunities. There's so much now that's being offered virtually that there's really no limitation on what we can possibly do. So please reach out to Kathleen.
Thanks, Debbie. This next question has to do with those folks who are working at home. So does the campus have any funding set aside for both faculty and staff to assist with the expenses that they are incurring while operating at home? And examples given were like personal computers, printers, inks, supplies, so forth.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. I'm going to ask Vice President A. Stone to answer that.
If anyone is still using their personal device at home, please contact your supervising manager, because we are going to ensure that if anyone, we realize everything happens so quickly in the spring, but now that we recognize that many will still be working remotely through the fall semester, if you are still using a personal device, please contact your supervising manager, and accommodations will be made to provide you with a university-owned or university-purchased device. Regarding printers and ink, that is a personal expense, because there is very little that really should be printed at this time, or if there is printing to be done, to be able to email that or send that to a colleague who may be working on campus who can print that for you. But in particular, the personal devices, please contact your supervising manager, and that accommodation will be made.
Thank you. Let's see, there was a question, a very brief one, around athletics in terms of when can we expect a decision around athletics for the fall?
Sure. The athletic decision will be coming later in the summer. I can't tell you exactly when that'll be, because we're awaiting guidance from Governor Newsom, and I have been in touch with his staff about it. I do believe it's forthcoming relatively soon, but until we receive that, we'll not be able to make a decision. I've been in close communication with the two other presidents, Papazian and De La Torre, um, who are in the Mountain West Conference. So we're coordinating with them, with the chancellor, with the Mountain West Conference. And I do anticipate the Mountain West is going to attempt to compete. They know that we're on a different timeline and recognize and respect that. So we've not brought any student athletes onto campus at this point, and we won't do that until we have guidance from the governor. So you may have heard about universities that have already done that, and they've done that because the NCAA has allowed that to occur. But we're going to wait for guidance from the governor before we make our decision about any of that. So stay tuned. We'll communicate that as soon as we know.
Thank you. This next question is from a faculty member, and since several people have upvoted it, I thought I'd bring it to your attention.
Sure.
This faculty member is asking about PPE in terms of what protective equipment will the campus provide. In particular, will we need to notify students who are taking in-person courses that they must provide their own face masks?
Thank you. I think I'll ask Vice President Astone to answer that question.
Well, first of all, Brian Cotham, our Director of Procurement and Support Services, has been busy this summer procuring as much PPE as we can to have an inventory at the warehouse and available for whatever your needs may be to support in-person instruction. So we will have the disposable, ear loop masks. We have gloves. We're buying gallons of hand sanitizing gel so we can refill all of the stations that'll be located in every building and on every floor. We will provide, as what was mentioned earlier, guidance will be provided to faculty as far as information they can put in their syllabus. There will also be information going out to students and working with our colleagues in student affairs so that students know that they do need to provide their own facial coverings when they come to campus. At the same time, we will have a supply, and this is what, some of the logistics we still need to work out as far as where we would have those locations of supply of facial coverings to be available if someone does arrive and doesn't have one. But we've bought already over 40,000 face masks, and we'll procure more as we know how many we're kind of consuming on a weekly basis. But it is a requirement for everyone to provide their own. At the same time, we're going to make sure that we have enough supply to keep our campus safe. And if, like I said, if someone comes to campus and forgets, that it happens for all of us, we will have adequate PPE. And then we are working with our colleagues in the Lyles College of Engineering and Environmental Health and Safety to looking at the facial shield masks that would be available for our faculty, because obviously they're having to lecture and want to make sure that we have something that works for them. And we would provide those and cover that cost. We just need to ensure that that meets all of the public health guidelines first. But it's great to have the capability right here on our campus to be able to make those, and a shout out to Dean Nuna and his team.
Thank you. That's such an important topic. The next question, let's see, since the start of the pandemic, individuals of Asian descent have been unfairly harmed and blamed for COVID-19. What measures will be in place to protect Asian students, faculty, and staff?
Thank you for the question. And I'm very sensitive to that concern because I've seen it. And there's no place for that view at Fresno State. It does not align with our mission or values. And I spoke into that issue earlier this summer, and will continue to do so. We will do everything that we've always done here at Fresno State to embrace our mission and our values. And if people don't respect those values, then we will take appropriate action. But I want every student, faculty, and staff member to know that we'll protect and support you the very best we can. And we'll continue to speak in support of all of our diverse communities who make up Fresno State, and especially our Asian Pacific Islander community We are very proud to be an Annapese institution, and we'll continue to demonstrate that pride as well. And I appreciate the question. And if there are any specific concerns that you might have, please let us know, and we will do whatever we can to address them.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. This next question is a three-part question around the library. First, can you please shed light on the operation of the Henry Madden Library for the fall semester? Will students have access to the study space in the building? And what about those resources which are located inside the library? These are departments are currently offering services online, and will this continue in the fall?
Thank you. I'd like to ask Provost Jimenez Sandoval to answer that question.
Sure. So the library will be open on a limited basis based on the first floor. The first floor will be open, but we will have social distancing measures put in place. We will have the Discovery Hub open and made available to students through that. Library will be accessible to students taking face-to-face instruction in the fall. We want to discourage students who are taking virtual instruction, full virtual instruction, from coming to the library, because it will not have the capacity to accommodate everyone who wants to study in the library due to social distancing measures. I believe those were all the questions. The question disappeared from the side, but yeah.
If I could take a moment to amplify on the Discovery part, I just want to ask you as faculty and staff to help us. If you know of a student who doesn't have access to technology, either an iPad or a hotspot, to please encourage them to reach out to Discovery. And we plan to invest in additional devices as needed. We've fortunately been able to use CARES Fund funding to help us cover that that expense, because we hadn't planned to do that. But I just want to ask you to help us in that regard. There should not be a Fresno State student who struggles in that particular way. So we just want to make sure the message continues to get out to them. And we did provide 3,000 devices last year, iPads, and 1,500 mobile hotspots. And we're prepared to do more this fall as needed. So please, again, your help with letting your students know that if you detect any issues, and then we'll be able to respond through the Discovery office.
Thank you, Dr. Castro. The next question is, let's see, they jump around on me. The question is, if a faculty member is not teaching a face-to-face course, but they want to use their office during the fall, would they have to go through the daily health screening to actually access their office on campus?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to ask the provost to answer that.
Thank you, President Castro. That's a great question. So we are asking anyone who comes to campus to answer the questions on the app. We will have an app that has several questions that asks about the basics: temperature, overall health, loss of taste, loss of smell, et cetera, et cetera. Once the person clears that, then they can access their office. We want to know if professors will be in their office, because if we do have an issue with someone becoming sick, we want to be able to implement some contact tracing at that point. So even though the person will not be teaching face-to-face, we want them to answer the app. They will not have to go through the temperature testing though, just the app.
So the next question is around the Joyal building. As you may know, the Joyal AC building is in very bad shape. Are there any plans to repair that building and the AC system while the majority of staff are out?
Thank you for that question. Vice President Astone, would you like to address that?
Yes, thank you. Great question, and recognize that we have some work to do in the Joyle building. And actually, that project is under design right now, a very comprehensive upgrade, almost full replacement of the HVAC system in the Joyle building, including lighting upgrades as well. Unfortunately, the project is in design right now, so it's not able to be, the work's not able to be done this fall. That would have been ideal. Because when we get to the point of doing the project, which is targeted for 2021, probably the latter part to start, there's quite a logistical plan that we will need to undertake given the areas of work that the contractor would need access to. But rest assured, it's a priority project and the design is underway currently. But also, we're taking all necessary precautions for the Joyle building and ensuring outside air and all of the requirements that meet code. And EPA requirements. So the building is safe, but it isn't, it's an aged HVAC system. And so it does need to be replaced, but all precautions are being taken and everything meets code.
Thank you, Debbie. The next question is from a faculty member. Who would our contact point be if we as a faculty have questions about certain technology students need for a class? Would it be the CIO, the dean, the department chair, or Discovery?
Great question. I think I'll ask the provost to answer that.
Let's start with CFE at this point, Patty, and then take it from there. If it's a very specific technology question, I'm sure that Brian Barrett will be able to handle that, and we can also step in to resolve the issue.
Great. Regarding tuition, has it been reduced to reflect limited and or altered access to services and to online learning?
Thank you for the question. As you may know, our tuition and fees are the lowest of any public university in California. We've been very intentional about keeping our costs as low as possible because we know that every dollar matters for our students and families. So that will continue to be the case this coming year. And for those students who are not coming to campus, or faculty or staff, you will not have to purchase a parking permit. It would only be if you're coming to campus. And so we'll charge the tuition and fees as we did during the spring, and we'll continue to have a very robust financial aid program, over $250 million in financial aid that goes to our students. And the lion's share of that, over 70%, is in grants and scholarships. So that's why we've been able to keep our loan indebtedness levels, pretty modest compared to the national average. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, I think it does. There's also a question around if any plans are being made to provide students with Wi-Fi hotspots in parking lots.
I know that our technology office is looking at that option. My own personal view is that it comes with some complications, especially in a hot place like ours. And I also worry about it being overly enticing to get out of the car and give a hug to your best buddy. That may be happening without us knowing, but I don't want to encourage connections where they shouldn't be made. So we've been investing, as I said earlier, in mobile hotspots that they can use at their homes. And I say that knowing that not every home is equipped for work or for learning. And my home in Hanford would not have been equipped for that if I had had to go back home during my education. So I get that. But I do think that whole parking lot thing, while we're looking at it, I'm just a little skeptical about whether that's a good idea. We'll continue to consider it, but I'd rather continue emphasizing the mobile hotspots and helping folks connect wherever they live.
Great. This next question again goes back towards the topic of particularly our staff who are working from home. This question begins by saying that other CSU campuses have allowed staff and faculty to take home anything that they need. And this person's referring to desktop computers, chairs, and what have you. Why are Fresno State staff not allowed to take home items that they need?
Well, we've discussed that at length. There's some good reasons for that, and I'd like to have Vice President Astone answer it.
Thank you. And as all of you know, when the pandemic hit, a lot of decisions had to be made very quickly in a very short period of time. And at that time, we didn't know how long the shelter-in-place order was going to be in place. We did not know, how long the working remotely requirement would be required. So now that we obviously have more information and we know that now as part of our campus plan for fall 2020, it will essentially kind of be business as usual as we are now, except for those staff that need to return to support in-person instruction. We are taking another look at our initial guidance relative to monitors and chairs. So please stay tuned. There'll be more information coming out next week because we recognize that with this extended duration of having our folks work at home, that we do need to identify possibly some other accommodations in working with our team in environmental health and safety and our ergonomics coordinator in HR. So please know we've heard you and we've listened and we understand, and more information will be coming out next week to address that specific question.
Thanks, Debbie. Here's a question I've heard actually quite a bit, two-part. Who is considered to be non-essential, and are non-essential staff at risk of losing their positions?
It's a great question. I think I'll have Vice President Astone start.
So initially when the communication came out about reducing the campus population to only essential employees, we looked at the key functional areas that we needed in order to keep our campus operating. And our goal was to reduce the campus population in the spring, and we've continued that over the summer to ensure that we have the staff here that can make sure that the lawns are getting mowed. And especially I want to give a big shout out right now to our custodians, our team in facility operations. They have not left. They've been here the entire time. They've been so focused on ensuring that our buildings are clean and sanitized, and just doing and getting the training as well. And so I just want to give a big shout out to them and our entire team and facilities for all they've done to help us get ready for the fall and all the work they've been doing this spring and summer. But as many of you know, the essential pay was lifted as of May 31st. And so now what we are looking at is a multi-phased repopulation plan, because our goal is still to reduce and keep limited campus population for the remainder of the summer and going into the fall. But we recognize we do need to start bringing back some of our staff who are needed to support and get us ready for fall. But in addition, for our staff who might be close to exhausting their CPAL or their NTWL. And so we're working with each of the vice presidents and human resources to ensure that, as we know, if we have staff who are getting close to reaching those limits, that we are able to bring them back and working with their supervisor, and that they will have work to do when they return. So I hope that answers the question. So there's a number of facets we're taking into consideration, but as President Castro mentioned earlier, we are trying to ensure that we are just very diligent about the size of our campus population in accordance with the approved campus plan, and that's to protect all of you. And so we're doing our very best to accommodate, and realize it's been a little bit fluid, but going forward, we will be able to have a more precise plan for staff that will be here possibly from July 1st to August 15th to get ready for fall. And then it could be that some of those staff are working remotely, and then we may have other staff join us who need to be here actually during the academic semester, like our colleagues in dining and housing, to support our residents.
Thanks. It looks like we have time for potentially two more questions. One of them has to do with the University High School here on campus. since we share the campus with them, will they be virtual or face-to-face?
That's a great question. Do you know, Provost?
Yeah, right now University High School is exploring that. They are under the direct jurisdiction of Fresno Unified, even though they're a charter school. The fact that they share the space with us here means that they're able to access our facilities on the one hand, but on the other hand, they are still under the direct jurisdiction of Fresno Unified. They're currently exploring that, just like Fresno Unified is, and then more information will be forthcoming with that.
Let's see, another one has to do with in-person courses. Actually, this is from a faculty member. If my course is not on the list for in-person teaching, could I have students come to campus to pick up materials that could be used in their education?
Provost?
Yeah, we've had several faculty who have organized the picking up of materials. If you do it in a way that minimizes risk, meaning if you let students know that, for example, students with the last name of A through B should be here between 10 and 10:30, and then have to tier them throughout the day. That's one of the best practices that we've seen. The other best practice that we've seen is that you pre-package whatever materials they might need, and then you would be able then to deliver, to have them pick them up outside somewhere. But the best practice though in this case would be to make these materials available to them virtually. So either by email or by putting them on Canvas or by scanning them if it's permissible by copyright laws, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, we want to minimize by having a strategy of how these materials will be picked up or how they will be delivered to the students.
Great, and I think we have time for one more. This asks, will there be consistent practices and strategies recommended to office staff across campus about how to remain accessible and engaging with students in a way that would replace office visits or calls to our office lines?
Absolutely, yes. Provost, would you like to start?
Sure, yeah. We have begun to gather information about classes that are going to be synchronous and asynchronous. I know that Tom Holyoke sent out an email to the faculty about that. We understand that faculty are off contract at this point. We've asked the chairs to engage very strongly with this because we ultimately need to protect the students and we ultimately need to provide this information to our students, right? Having said that, then what we want to focus on more than anything is the following. If the class is going to be synchronous, meaning if the class is going to have a set time and a set date, in a day in which the class meets, we want faculty to provide flexibility to our students. It will be the case that not all students will be able to make that Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Therefore, we're asking faculty to record their lectures so that both students enrolled in the class who were able to make the class time in the synchronous time, and those who could not could then go back and review or listen to it for the first time. If the class is asynchronous, meaning that there's no set time, the professor will post a series of lectures, videos, et cetera, online. We're still asking the faculty then to have a set amount of time put aside on a weekly basis in which there can be face-to-face personal contact with students. Asynchronous classes will be successful only and if there is this personal connection from the faculty member to the students that encourages them to keep going on their studies and that makes sure that the students are assimilating the information as the class is progressing. So that is going to be the focal point moving forward with some of the ideas that we'll be presenting to the faculty soon.
Great. Well, the last minute or two that we have, Dr. Castro, I wondered if you have any wrap-up comments just to share with our colleagues throughout campus for the rest of the summer.
Sure. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us today and for your great questions. We'll continue to answer your questions. So if you have other ones, let us know. You can speak with your supervisor as well. And we've been trying to make sure we get the word out to you as quickly as we can. I thank you for your hard work during this extraordinary time. I've never seen anything like this in my 30 years of work in higher education. And there really is no handbook for how to lead in this area, how to work in this era. So we're all doing the best we can. I urge everybody to continue to be flexible and reasonable and compassionate. I know that there's a lot of stress. I really appreciate those who have been here the whole time. I know many of you would have loved to have been here but couldn't. But the ones that have been here, including this cabinet and these two vice presidents and Patty, I can tell you that their lives have been completely changed, and I know many of you have experienced that as well. I appreciate everything that you're doing. I hope you get a little time this summer. It will be important to restore and renew. So I know I've been encouraging that here with my colleagues, and I plan to take a little time myself. So I hope you get some time to relax with family and friends in a safe way. And I look forward to staying in touch with you this summer and to a great fall semester. Thank you again for joining us.